The silent colony Dar. Sarah Chun wiped the dust from her gloves as she examined the strange crystalline formations deep within the ancient ruins of Meridian 7. The research colony had been established here 3 years ago when miners discovered these mysterious structures buried beneath the planet's surface. What they found challenged everything the galaxy knew about ancient civilizations. The ruins were old beyond measure, possibly predating every known spacefaring species by millions of years. The architecture was unlike anything in the galactic. Databases with flowing organic curves that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Sarah had dedicated her life to understanding these mysteries, and today she felt closer than ever to a breakthrough. "Sarah, you need to see this immediately," called engineer Rosa Martinez from across the excavation chamber. Rosa had been working on the power systems that kept the underground research facility running, but something in her voice made Sarah drop everything and rush over. The chamber Rosa had discovered was different from the others. While most of the ruins seemed decorative or ceremonial, this room was clearly functional. Banks of crystalline panels lined the walls, and in the center stood a massive structure that hummed with barely contained energy. The air itself seemed to vibrate with power. "How long has this been active?" Sarah asked, her scientific excitement warring with growing concern. "That's just it," Rosa replied, checking her instruments. "According to my readings, it activated itself about an hour ago, right around the time you started examining those symbols in the outer chamber." Sarah's blood ran cold. She had been photographing and documenting a series of intricate symbols carved into the main entrance, symbols that seemed to shift and change when she wasn't looking directly at them. She had touched one of them, just briefly, to test if it was some kind of holographic projection. Commander Marcus Webb's voice crackled over their communication devices. "All research teams return to the surface immediately. We have a situation developing." Sarah and Rosa made their way through the winding tunnels that connected the ruins to the colony above. Marcus had been the head of security for the colony since its establishment, and his military background made him naturally cautious about anything that could threaten the civilian population. Sarah respected his judgment, even when it conflicted with her scientific curiosity. The colony of Meridian 7 was small but well organized. 237 people called this remote world home, from miners and engineers to researchers and support staff. They had built their settlement in a valley surrounded by rolling hills, with the entrance to the ancient ruins located about half a kilometer from the main buildings. Marcus was waiting for them at the colony's command center, his weathered face grave with concern. Captain David Park, their communications officer, was monitoring multiple screens showing various sensor readings from around the colony. "What's the situation?" Sarah asked as she entered the room. "Something big is moving underground," Marcus replied, pointing to the seismic readings on Park's screens. "Started about 90 minutes ago, right around the time you activated whatever you activated down there." Sarah felt a knot forming in her stomach. "I didn't activate anything intentionally. I just touched a symbol to see if it was solid." "Well, something responded," Park said, adjusting his equipment. "I'm picking up massive energy signatures throughout the entire underground complex. Whatever's down there, it's been sleeping for a very long time, and now it's waking up." The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, a low vibration that seemed to come from the planet's core itself. Outside the command center windows, they could see dust rising from various points around the valley as something large moved beneath the surface. "Everyone to emergency stations," Marcus ordered over the colony's communication system. "This is not a drill. All civilian personnel report to the main shelter immediately." The first Guardian emerged from the hillside east of the colony like a metal mountain coming to life. It stood nearly 50 meters tall, its body constructed from the same crystalline material as the ruins. but somehow transformed into something harder and more purposeful. Its movements were fluid, despite its massive size, and its multiple arms ended in tools that could reshape matter at the molecular level. More guardians appeared around the valley, each one unique, but clearly part of the same ancient defense system. Some moved on legs like mechanical spiders. Others floated above the ground on waves of controlled energy. All of them shared the same purpose: to protect the ruins from any interference. The guardians didn't attack immediately. Instead, they seemed to be studying the colony, analyzing the humans and their technology with sensors that glowed like stars in the growing darkness. Sarah watched from the command center as one of the larger guardians approached the main settlement, its multiple eyes focusing on the buildings with obvious intelligence. "They're trying to understand us," she whispered, her scientific mind still working even in the face of terror. Marcus was coordinating the colony's defenses, but they had never been designed to fight something like this. Meridian 7 was a peaceful research outpost, not a military installation. Their security systems were meant to deal with wildlife and the occasional equipment malfunction, not ancient alien war machines. The first attack came without warning. One of the smaller guardians extended what looked like a scanning device toward the colony's main power plant. When the humans tried to interfere, the machine responded with devastating efficiency. A beam of pure energy reduced the power plant to its component atoms in seconds. "They're not trying to kill us," Rosa observed as she watched the attack through the command center's monitors. "They could have vaporized the entire colony by now, but they're being selective." Sarah nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. "They're trying to make us leave. The Guardians see us as a threat to the ruins, so they're systematically destroying our ability to stay here." But the Guardians had underestimated human stubbornness. Marcus had served in 3 different colonial conflicts, and he knew that sometimes the only choice was to fight impossible odds. He organized the colonists into defensive teams, using mining equipment and construction tools as improvised weapons. The battle for Meridian 7 began in earnest as the sun set behind the alien mountains. The Guardians advanced methodically, taking apart the colony's infrastructure piece by piece. The humans fought back with everything they had, but their weapons barely scratched the ancient machines. Engineer Martinez managed to rig some of the mining explosives into effective anti-Guardian weapons, but for every machine they damaged, 2 more emerged from underground. The Guardians were adapting to human tactics in real time, their artificial intelligence learning from each encounter. "We need help," Park said as he worked frantically at his communication console. "I'm broadcasting on all emergency frequencies, but we're too far from the core worlds. Even if someone receives our signal, it would take days for help to arrive." Marcus looked out at the advancing wall of metal and crystal death. "Then we hold them off for days. These people are depending on us." But privately, he knew they couldn't last much longer. The Guardians were too advanced, too numerous, and too adaptable. The colony's defenses were crumbling, and their ammunition was running low. Park's console suddenly came alive with incoming signals. "Commander, I'm getting responses to our distress call." The first response came from the Altarian Federation, one of the galaxy's most powerful military alliances. Their message was brief and chilling. "Meridian 7 colony, we have received your distress signal. However, our xenoarchaeological databases indicate you have activated a Vanguard defense system. These installations are classified as extinction-level threats. We cannot risk sending ships to your location. May your ancestors watch over you." Similar messages came from the Keth Empire, the Zorathian Republic, and even the normally helpful Benevolent Union of Peaceful Worlds. Every major power in the galaxy knew about the ancient Vanguard installations, and every one of them was too afraid to risk their fleets in a rescue attempt. "There's one more signal coming in," Park announced, his voice filled with disbelief. It's a human ship." The message was brief, but carried the weight of absolute determination. Meridian 7. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the independent vessel Defiant. We've received your distress call and are en route with a small fleet. Hold your position. Humans don't abandon humans. Eta, 18 hours. Marcus stared at the communication console in amazement. A human fleet was coming to help them, despite knowing they would be facing weapons that had made the galaxy's superpowers back down in fear. "How many ships?" he asked. Park checked his readings. 7 vessels, sir. All civilian craft converted for long-range patrol. No military vessels in the group. Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. 7 civilian ships against an army of ancient war machines. They're going to get themselves killed trying to save us. Maybe, Marcus replied, checking his rifle one more time. But that's what humans do. We're too stupid to know when something's impossible. Outside, the Guardians continued their methodical advance. The colony's outer defenses had fallen, and the machines were beginning to surround the main settlement. The survivors had gathered in the central complex, their backs literally against the wall. Rosa had managed to keep the communication systems running by rerouting power from non-essential systems. The colony's lights flickered as she diverted every available joule to maintaining contact with the approaching human fleet. "This is insane," she muttered as she worked. 7 ships against machines that have been perfecting their craft for millions of years. But deep in her heart, she felt something she hadn't experienced since the crisis began. Hope. The galaxy's greatest powers might have written them off, but somewhere out in the darkness, a small group of humans was racing toward certain death, just because other humans were in trouble. The Guardians seemed to sense the approaching fleet. Their behavior changed subtly, becoming more aggressive as they accelerated their attack on the colony. They began targeting the communication array directly, trying to cut off the humans linked to the outside universe. Marcus organized one final, desperate defense of the communication center. Every able-bodied colonist took up arms, using everything from mining lasers to improvised explosive devices. The battle was fierce, but brief, as wave after wave of Guardian drones swept through the colony's remaining defenses. Park managed to send one final message before the communication array was destroyed. "Human fleet, this is Meridian 7. Guardian forces have overrun our position. Estimate complete colony destruction within 6 hours. Do not attempt rescue. Repeat, do not attempt rescue. The enemy force is beyond anything we can handle." But even as the message went out, Park was smiling. He knew that telling humans not to attempt a rescue was like telling water not to be wet. If anything, it would make them more determined to reach the colony in time. The survivors retreated to the colony's emergency shelter, a reinforced bunker designed to protect against environmental hazards. It wasn't meant to withstand the kind of firepower the Guardians possessed, but it was their last refuge dot as the ancient machines began their final assault on the human stronghold. Sarah found herself thinking about the approaching fleet. 7 ships crewed by people who had never seen the terror they were flying toward, rushing to help strangers they had never met. "You know what the crazy part is?" she said to Marcus as they listened to the Guardians testing the bunker's defenses. "What's that? Those ships might actually make it. Not because they're stronger or smarter than the galactic powers that refuse to help us." She paused as another impact shook the bunker. "But because they're human. And humans don't know how to quit." Outside, the Guardians continued their work with mechanical precision. But unknown to them, 7 ships full of the galaxy's most dangerous creatures were approaching fast. Ships full of beings who had turned stubbornness into an art form, and impossibility into just another word for Tuesday. The rescue fleet was still 12 hours away, but for the first time since the crisis began, the balance was about to shift. The Guardians had awakened to find their ancient sanctuary invaded by a species they had never encountered before. They were about to learn why the rest of the galaxy both feared and respected humanity in equal measure. Asterisk. When humans answered the call, Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Defiant, studying the tactical display that showed the Meridian 7 system ahead. Her small fleet of 7 ships had been patrolling the Outer Rim territories when they picked up the colony's distress signal. Most rational beings would have calculated the odds and turned away, but Elena had never been accused of being rational. "Captain, we're getting long-range sensor readings from the planet," reported Lieutenant Jake Thompson from the pilot's station. Jake was young, barely 25, but he had an instinct for flying that Elena had rarely seen. "The energy signatures are off the charts. Whatever those guardian things are, they're powerful enough to sterilize continents." Chief Engineer Alex Kim looked up from his console, where he had been modifying their civilian mining equipment into something more combat-ready. "The good news is that civilian mining gear is designed to break apart really hard things. The bad news is that these ancient machines have had millions of years to perfect being really hard things." Dr. Michael Torres, who served as both the fleet's medic and their expert on alien biology, was analyzing the fragmentary data they had received about the Vanguard Guardians. "According to the galactic databases, no one has ever successfully fought these machines and lived to tell about it. The few encounters on record all ended the same way: total destruction of everything in the system." Elena nodded grimly. "Then I guess we're about to make history one way or another. What's our ETA?" 6 hours at maximum burn," Jake replied. "But Captain, pushing the engines this hard for this long, we might not have enough fuel to get home." "We'll worry about getting home after we get those people out," Elena said firmly. "Alex, what's the status on our improvised weapons?" Alex grinned, the expression making him look even younger than his 30 years. "Well, we've got mining lasers rigged to overload and discharge all their energy at once. Think of them as really big, really angry flashlights. We've got magnetic grappling systems that might be able to grab and redirect smaller Guardian units. And we've got about 2,000 tons of industrial explosives that Rosa Martinez helped us cook up." "Rosa Martinez?" "The engineer on Meridian 7. She's been transmitting technical specifications and tactical data whenever the Guardians aren't jamming communications. Smart woman. She's been turning their entire colony into one big improvised weapon." Elena felt a surge of pride. Humans might not have the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but they had something more valuable: the ability to turn anything into a weapon when their survival depended on it. "What about the other ships?" "Captain Rodriguez on the Stormbreaker has been modifying her cargo haulers into ramming vessels," Alex reported. "Captain Singh on the Pathfinder is carrying most of our medical supplies and evacuation equipment. The rest of the fleet is loaded with everything from construction equipment to emergency rations." Dr. Torres looked up from his analysis. "Elena, I need to tell you something about these Guardian machines. They're not just ancient technology. They're adaptive artificial intelligence with millions of years of combat experience. They learn from every encounter. They coordinate perfectly. And they don't make mistakes." "Sounds like they've never fought humans before," Elena replied with a grin that would have made a shark nervous. "Jake, patch me through to the other ships. It's time to coordinate our approach." Within minutes, all 7 human captains were on a joint communication channel. They were an eclectic group: former military officers, merchant captains, mining supervisors, and even a retired racing pilot. What they all shared was the absolute certainty that they would not abandon the people. "On Meridian 7, all right, people," Elena began. "Here's what we're facing. Ancient alien war machines that have made the galaxy's biggest empires run away in terror. The good news is that they've never faced humans before, so they don't know how we fight. Captain Rodriguez of the Stormbreaker laughed grimly. And how exactly do humans fight ancient invincible war machines? Badly, Elena admitted. But we make up for skill with pure bloody-minded stubbornness. Alex explained the plan. Alex took over the briefing, outlining their strategy with the enthusiasm of a man who genuinely enjoyed impossible challenges. The Guardians are intelligent, but they're also predictable. They follow patterns, they prioritize threats logically, and they assume their enemies will do the same. We're going to do everything wrong, tactically speaking. Defying wrong, Captain Singh requested. We're going to split up when we should stay together. We're going to attack their strongest points when we should hit their weakest. We're going to make noise when we should be stealthy. Basically, we're going to fight like humans instead of like sane people. The other captains were quiet for a moment, processing this information. Finally, Captain Martinez of the Horizon spoke. Up, that's either the most brilliant plan I've ever heard or the most suicidal. Why not both? Elena replied cheerfully. As they approached the Meridian 7 system, the scale of what they were facing became clear. The planet was surrounded by hundreds of Guardian vessels, each one larger and more heavily armed than any ship in their fleet. The energy readings coming from the surface showed an active battle in progress, but it was clearly in its final stages. My God, whispered Jake as he stared at the tactical display. There must be thousands of them. Then it's a good thing we brought thousands of rounds of ammunition, Elena replied, though privately she was having serious doubts about their chances. She had led desperate missions before, but nothing like this. Dr. Torres was monitoring communications from the planet. I'm picking up fragments of transmissions from the colony. They're still alive, but barely. The Guardians have them pinned down in some kind of emergency shelter. How long can they hold out? Elena asked. Based on the energy readings from the Guardian assault, maybe 2 hours, 3 at most. Elena made her decision. All ships, this is Defiant. We're going in hot and fast. Remember, we're not trying to win a war here. We just need to cause enough chaos to get our people out. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system and immediately accelerated toward the planet at maximum speed. The Guardian ships responded instantly, turning to meet this new threat with the coordinated precision of a single massive organism. They're beautiful, Dr. Torres observed as he watched the alien vessels maneuver. Absolutely beautiful, and absolutely terrifying. The first engagement began when they were still an hour out from the planet. The Guardians sent a probe force of smaller vessels to test the human capabilities, expecting to analyze their tactics and technology before committing to a larger battle. They were not prepared for Captain Rodriguez to ram her cargo hauler directly into the largest Guardian probe at full speed while screaming, "Surprise, motherfuckers!" Over the communication channel, the explosion was visible from half a system away as both vessels disintegrated in a ball of superheated plasma. The remaining Guardian probes hesitated for a crucial moment, their artificial intelligence trying to process what had just happened. Rodriguez, you magnificent crazy woman, Elena shouted as she watched the tactical display. All ships follow her lead. Remember, we're not playing by their rules. Jake took the Defiant into a spiraling dive toward the planet's surface, weaving between Guardian ships while Alex fired their modified mining lasers at anything that looked important. The weapons weren't powerful enough to destroy the alien vessels, but they were causing enough damage to confuse and irritate their targets. Captain Singh had taken a different approach, using his ship's medical scanners to analyze the Guardian technology while his crew jerry-rigged their emergency equipment into weapons. Elena, I'm sending you tactical data. The Guardians have some kind of central coordination system. Can we disrupt it? Elena asked as she watched Jake perform a maneuver that should have been impossible with their heavy cargo ship. Maybe. but we'd need to get close to their command vessel. It's the big one in planetary orbit, about the size of a small moon." Elena looked at the tactical display and whistled. The Guardian command ship was indeed massive, bristling with weapons that could probably destroy their entire fleet with a single salvo. It was also exactly the kind of target that any sane military commander would avoid at all costs. "Jake, set course for the big scary one," she ordered. "Captain, that's suicide," Jake replied, but he was already adjusting their heading. "Probably." Elena agreed. "But it's the kind of suicide that gets songs written about it." The battle for Meridian 7 had become chaos in the purest sense. Human ships darted between Guardian vessels like angry insects, causing far more trouble than their size should have allowed. They used tactics that made no tactical sense: ramming attacks, coordinated mining laser barrages, and in one memorable case, Captain Liu of the Endeavor managed to lasso a Guardian fighter with a magnetic grappling cable and use it as a flail against its companions. These humans fight like they're insane. Observe the Guardian hive mind as it tried to adapt to the unpredictable tactics. Their attack patterns make no logical sense. "Perhaps that is the point," replied another section of the artificial intelligence. "They are using chaos itself as a weapon." Dr. Torres had been analyzing the Guardian technology throughout the battle, and suddenly he looked up with excitement. "Elena, I figured it out. The Guardians are so advanced that they can't understand simple solutions." "What do you mean?" Elena asked as she felt the ship shudder under Guardian weapons fire. "Their technology is based on quantum mechanics and dimensional manipulation. They expect complex, sophisticated attacks. But their systems aren't designed to handle simple, crude solutions." Alex caught on immediately. "You mean we should hit them with rocks instead of lasers?" "Exactly. Well, metaphorically speaking. Their shields are calibrated to stop energy weapons and guided missiles. But a big chunk of metal moving really fast? That's so primitive, they might not even recognize it as a threat." Elena grinned as understanding dawned. "All ships, this is Defiant. New tactical priority. Start throwing things at them. Literally, use your cargo launchers, dump your waste tanks, anything that has mass and velocity." What followed was the most undignified space battle in galactic history. Human ships began, launching everything they could fit into their cargo tubes: spare parts, mining equipment, food containers, and even Captain Martinez's prized collection of ancient Earth movies. The Guardian shields, designed to stop sophisticated energy weapons, were completely bypassed by chunks of metal and debris moving at relativistic speeds. "It's working," Jake shouted as he watched a Guardian cruiser stagger under the impact of 3 tons of assorted junk. "They can't adapt fast enough." The Guardian hive mind was experiencing something it had not felt in millions of years: confusion. These humans were using tactics that violated every principle of advanced warfare. They were winning battles with garbage and determination, 2 things that shouldn't have been effective against vanguard technology. Analysis requested. The hive mind asked itself. How are these primitive beings achieving tactical success? Theory. They are not primitive. They are using a form of warfare so advanced that it appears primitive to our sensors. Counter theory. They are genuinely primitive and therefore unpredictable. Both theories may be correct simultaneously. The Guardian fleet began to adapt, but they were fighting an enemy that thrived on adaptation. Every time the ancient machines figured out one human tactic, the humans had already moved on to something even more impossible. Alana's ship finally reached the Guardian command vessel, and she was amazed by its size. The thing was less a ship than a small artificial planet, covered in weapons that could crack moons. But as Dr. Torres had predicted, all those sophisticated weapons were having trouble targeting a single small vessel that was flying in completely random patterns. "Alex, How are those special presents coming along? Elena asked. Alex grinned as he made final adjustments to their largest mining charges. Remember how I said we had 2,000 tons of explosives? Well, I've been thinking, if we're going to make a statement, it should be a big one. Define big, Elena said, though she was pretty sure she didn't want to know. Asterisk. Big enough to be seen from orbit. Possibly big enough to be seen from other star systems. Jake was bringing them in close to the command ship's hull, dodging defensive fire with the kind of precision flying that would have made racing pilots weep with envy. 30 seconds to optimal deployment position. Elena opened the communication channel to all human ships. All vessels, this is Defiant. We're about to give these ancient machines a lesson in human stubbornness. If this works, converge on the colony for immediate evacuation. If it doesn't work, well, it's been an honor serving with all of you. Likewise, Captain, came the response from 6 different ships. Alex armed the explosives as Jake brought them alongside the command ship's central control section. The Guardian vessel was so large that their ship was like a flea landing on an elephant, barely registering on the alien sensors. Package delivered, Alex announced as he launched every explosive device they had directly into the command ship's hull. Detonation in 10 seconds. I suggest we be somewhere else when that happens. Jake had already begun their escape burn, pushing their engines to limits that would probably require a complete overhaul if they survived the next few minutes. Behind them, 2,000 tons of human-made explosives detonated simultaneously in the heart of the Guardian command vessel. Explosion was indeed visible from orbit, a brilliant flash that temporarily outshone the system's star. When the light faded, the Guardian command ship was gone, replaced by an expanding cloud of debris and exotic particles. Across the Guardian fleet, the effect was immediate and devastating. Without their central coordination system, the Ancient, machines began operating independently, their perfect tactical coordination dissolving into individual confusion. Now, Elena shouted over the communication channel. All ships to the colony, maximum speed. The human vessels dove toward the planet's surface, while the Guardian fleet struggled to reorganize itself. On the ground, the surviving colonists watched in amazement as 7 human ships landed in the valley where their settlement had stood. Just days before, Commander Marcus Webb led the survivors out of their emergency shelter, carrying those too injured to walk. Dr. Sarah Chun helped coordinate the evacuation, her scientific mind cataloging everything she had learned about the Guardian technology. How many can you take? Marcus asked Captain Vasquez as the evacuation began. Elena looked at the 237 colonists and then at her 7 ships. All of them. It'll be crowded and it'll be uncomfortable, but we're not leaving anyone behind. As the last colonist was loaded aboard the human vessels, Rosa Martinez looked back at the ruins that had started the whole crisis. The Guardian machines were still there, but they seemed different now. Less coordinated, less threatening. They're going dormant again, she observed. Without their command ship, they're returning to sleep mode. Sarah nodded. The Ancient security system was probably designed to handle organized invasions, not the kind of chaotic assault humans specialize in. We confused them so badly, they couldn't maintain their awakened state. Elena secured the last of the evacuees aboard her ship and prepared for departure. All vessels, prepare for immediate departure. Those Guardians might reorganize, and I don't want to be here when they do. The human fleet lifted off from Meridian 7. Just as Jake's calculations predicted, the Guardian ground forces would re-establish communication with their orbital units. They escaped the system just ahead of a massive pursuit force, carrying with them the survivors of humanity's first encounter with Vanguard technology. Word of the rescue spread quickly through the galaxy. The same alien powers that had refused to help began sending diplomatic messages asking for details about human military capabilities. The Guardians of Meridian 7 had returned to their ancient slumber, but they had left behind a new legend. In the end, the galaxy learned something important that day. When desperate people send out a cry for help, most species calculate the odds and make logical decisions. But humans are different. Humans hear the call and ask only one question: how fast can we get there? The survivors of Meridian 7 were eventually resettled on a safer world, but they never forgot the lesson they learned. Sometimes the most dangerous beings in the galaxy are the ones who refuse to abandon each other, no matter what the odds. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, 7 human ships continued their patrol of the outer rim, ready to answer the next impossible call for help, because that's what humans do. They show up when no one else will, armed with determination, improvised weapons, and the absolute certainty that no one gets left behind. The galaxy was never quite the same after that. Asterisk.